The Deputy Prime Minister, Oliver Dowden, is to brief MPs today on the cyber threat from China. The government is expected to link Beijing to cyber.
And Freud on the nature of war and peace in global politics and in all human life. That's at 11:30. But first, the concluding part of The Gatekeepers with Jamie Bartlett. As pressure mounts from regulators and civic groups around the globe to rein in the power of tech platforms, is Silicon Valley's utopian dream about to implode?
I remember waking up, the alarm clock woke me up like it had done for days, quite early. And looking out the window, and it was overcast, crisp, bright, and just wondering what the day might bring. In my mind, I had no doubt that social media had played a part in Molly's death, because we didn't know what the coroner would conclude.
On Friday the 30th of September 2022, the family of Molly Russell arrive at the coroner's court for one last time. Molly's dad Ian, her mum Janet, her sisters and the family's legal team. Ian and one of their lawyers from Lee Day Solicitors, Mary Varney, are frustrated with the way the social media companies, particularly Meta, have behaved during the inquest.
What are those 3 Ds that I was warned about? Deny, delay and deflect. I was told that that would be the approach of the tech platforms. We run our platforms safely. Those sort of denials. Delay, certainly, because we struggle to get any data at all from Molly's digital life.
As Ian walks through the door, he feels a strange sense of relief. It's almost over. Coroner Andrew Walker reviewed thousands of pieces of content, some of the posts Mary Varney showed me in her office. He's heard witness statements read out in court, listened to testimony from family and representatives of social media companies. Meta's head of safety and well-being, Elizabeth Lagone, said she believed nearly all of the content Molly viewed was admissive.
She called it admissive, that a hashtag, for example, hashtag I want to die, wasn't violating because it was somebody wanting to express their own feelings, and a complete denial that it was an unsafe place for a child.
But a child psychologist also reviewed the material Molly saw online. He told the court that he found it so disturbing that he lost sleep for weeks. Every day of the hearing there had been some journalists and members of the public present, but today it's different.
And as we entered the courtroom, I'd never seen it so full. It was pretty full most days. Lots of the world's press seemed to be there most days. But there wasn't even standing room. People were sitting on the floor. They'd taken every vantage point to hear what the coroner had to say. And the sort of low hubbub that exists in such circumstances just stopped as we all walked in.
Finally, Andrew Walker arrives, and the court quietens to hear the coroner's verdict.
It would not be safe to leave suicide as a conclusion. She died from an act of self-harm while suffering from depression and the negative effects of online content. It is likely that the above material viewed by Molly, already suffering with a depressive illness and vulnerable due to her age, affected her mental health in a negative way and contributed to her death in a more than minimal way.
It doesn't feel like a victory for the Russell family, of course, but for Mary Varney, the coroner's conclusion is groundbreaking.
In my view, it's a really significant conclusion. It's often compared to the first finding of a coroner who found that asbestos had played a role in her death, and that led to sweeping changes and better accountability for hundreds and hundreds of victims. And our hope is that the conclusion that Molly's family fought so long and strongly for will have that sort of impact.
Later that day, the magnitude of what's happened hits Ian. He gives a press conference at a nearby church hall.
We should not be sitting here. This should not happen because it does not need to happen. But we told this story in the hope that change would come about. And I hope the digital world particularly will be a safer place. And the final thing I want to say is thank you, Molly, for being my daughter. Thank you.
It all started with a dream to connect the world, but growth and engagement caused problems.
They were calling action. He's the snake. Go and drink his blood.
And efforts to keep these platforms safe were divisive.
A senior White House advisor went on television to accuse me personally of being biased against conservatives and biased against Donald Trump.
Now, a court of law has concluded that online content contributed to Molly Russell's death. After 20 years, is Silicon Valley's radical experiment to connect the world about to implode? For BBC Radio 4, this is The Gatekeepers. I'm Jamie Bartlett. Episode 8, I Sung of Chaos. Around the same time as the Molly Russell inquest concludes, a strange story is unfolding inside Twitter HQ in San Francisco.
Well, I got a note from a person at Twitter and came out to Twitter and really wasn't told anything.
Elon Musk had only just bought the company for $44 billion. And now, journalist Matt Taibbi is sitting in one of the Twitter meeting rooms wondering why the world's third richest man has called him in on a top secret assignment. Matt's a seasoned journalist. He used to be a political writer for Rolling Stone magazine. Now he writes his own newsletter which he says gives him the freedom to say what he wants.
Obviously, he was picking people who were not tied to legacy media organizations, and there aren't a whole lot of, I would say, investigative reporters who are working in independent media who have a lot of experience doing this kind of stuff.
After Donald Trump's Twitter account is suspended in 2021, tensions around who and what is allowed on the platforms reaches fever pitch. Some on the right believe that the social media companies are using their power to subtly push a kind of establishment-friendly, liberal worldview. Musk gives Matt access to hundreds of thousands of internal Twitter documents, exchanges between employees, discussions about content moderation, minutes of meetings, emails.
It was so weird, Jamie. I mean, I can't even tell you how surreal the whole thing was. There was a moment in the first days of this project, Elon, sort of Faulty Towers style, kind of popped his head in the door at one point and he said, "Anyone need anything? Coffee?" And then popped out.
Over the next few months, Matt sits in a conference room at Twitter HQ on Market Street, along with a few other carefully selected journalists, and pores through the documents. He eventually posts his findings in a series of very long Twitter threads, which become known as the Twitter Files. The fallout from